Hello, everyone. My name is Ram Cholan. I'm a senior solutions engineer at F5. Today, I'm going to talk about a sophisticated phishing technique that fraudsters are using to bypass MFA and to defraud banks. I'm going to use my lab setup to demonstrate to you how this attack works and also show you how you can protect against it using F5. If you look at a traditional phishing attack, the fraudster would set up a fake website with a domain name that looks similar to the site that they want to attack and use that to trick victims into giving up their credentials, which they would use to do an account takeover. At F5, we've observed fraudsters using a new technique, which uses real-time phishing proxies to launch their scams. So let me walk you through how these real-time phishing proxies work. This is my lab setup where I have a target website, which is f5neobank.com, which is a banking application that's running in my lab. I have a real-time phishing proxy. I'm using Evil Jinx, which is a very popular tool that's been downloaded thousands of times to launch these attacks. And I also have a fake domain set up, which is F5neobank instead of the NEO. This one is NE0. So a victim is likely to click on it. When the victim clicks on the link, the browser would open a connection with the real-time phishing proxy, which would in turn proxy this connection back to the target website in real time. So the phishing proxy is acting as a reverse proxy and sending all the HTTP request and response headers between the victim and the target website, and also manipulating the HTTP headers in real time. So to the target website, it looks like a legitimate connection. From a victim standpoint, the actual web application will load in their browser. If they enter the current credentials, it will log them into their bank account. This is less likely to raise suspicion for the victim since they are actually interacting with their real account. And this gives the fraudster precious time to do the account takeover and do the money transfer and hide their tracks. Since the fraudster is a man in the middle here, using the phishing proxy server, they can capture the username, the password, the one-time password, and session token and use it to launch attack. So this diagram shows you step-by-step on how the attack works. The first step is where the victim enters the credentials. It lands in the phishing proxy. It'll forward the credentials to the target website. If there's MFA involved, the target website would send the OTP to the victim, who would then enter it into the browser, which gets forwarded to the target website. At this point, if the credentials are valid, the target website would send the session cookie to the phishing proxy, which would in turn send it to the victim. So now the phishing proxy has the credentials and the session cookie available to it in clear text, which can be used to launch an attack. So if you look at steps 2, 5, and 6, these are all unauthorized malicious actions. From a bank standpoint, this has to be mitigated. So let me open my Evil Jinx server in my lab and show you how a fraudster can use it to launch an attack. So the first step is where the fraudster would set up a lure, which is a specific URL, which they can send it to a victim. Once the victim opens the browser, clicks on it, they would be prompted to enter their username password. And in this case, we have MFA enabled using Google Authenticator. So let me type in the one-time password and click on Authenticate. So here you'll see that now the fraudster is essentially has access to the credentials, and the victim will see their bank account information in the browser. If you go to the Evil Jinx server here, and in the logs, you can see that the username, the password, they've all been captured. And if you go to the sessions information and type on the actual session ID, you'll see the username, the password, as well as additional things like the user agent, IP address of the victim, and so forth. And most importantly here, we also get the session token, which is available to the fraudster. They can take this session token, import into their browser, and use this to access the target website directly. So they, since it's an already authenticated session, the target website will not challenge to enter the credentials again. So this is how this Evil Jinx tool can be used to do an account takeover scam. Now, let me show you with F5 protection enabled. So in order to detect this attack, we need intelligence on the client side, because the phishing proxy is manipulating things in an intelligent way. On the server side, it's not possible to detect it. So at the client side, using our F5 load balancer, we would inject a JavaScript. So when a user browses to the specific, let's say the login page, we will insert the JavaScript, which will run in the end user's browser to collect signals and send it to us. It will be sent to our F5 distributed cloud, where we would inspect the JavaScript to look for malicious signals. If it's malicious, our engine can detect and block it in our cloud, and we can send the legitimate connections back to the customer origin. And the JavaScript is used for two purposes. One is to detect the domain name mismatch. Our JavaScript would know that the expected domain name is f5neobank.com, but what's rendering in the victim's browser is something else. So it would detect that there's a domain name mismatch. It will flag it in the JavaScript. And when it's sent to our cloud, we can identify this is not the expected domain and mitigate this attack. The JavaScript is also used to encrypt sensitive fields on the client side. So here, without our F5 JavaScript, all the credentials will be in clear text. But once we enable a JavaScript, it will all be encrypted. So the man-in-the-middle attacker, even though they can see the credentials, it is all encrypted and it's of no use to them. If I go back to this diagram here, so the first step of the transaction, when the victim enters the credentials, it'll all be encrypted from the phishing proxy side. And when it's forwarded, our JavaScript would detect there's a domain name mismatch and essentially mitigate this attack at step 2 and prevent it from going any further. With this, we are able to provide effective end-to-end protection. Now, let me switch to our F5 Big IP load balancer and enable the JavaScript protection and show you what happens once we enable this JavaScript. So here, I'm going to configure the JavaScript to be in blocking mode and update the configuration. And I will also go to our security policy and enable our anti-fraud profile. And this capability is to enable the encryption. So now let me exit out of this Evil Jinx and go back in. Now let me get the lure. So now when the victim clicks on the link and types the credentials here and click on login, you can see that the F5 load balancer has blocked this request. It's detected there's a domain name mismatch using the JavaScript signals, and it's blocked it. If you log in to the Evil Jinx server and look at the specific session here, you would see that the username is all fully encrypted, the password is fully encrypted, so no use to the fraudster, and also the session cookie is not valid. So essentially, we've been able to effectively protect customer from this real-time phishing attack. So that's it with my presentation. I hope you found this session insightful, and you can use this knowledge to better protect your applications against this attack. So thank you.